नाम है खुशबू का, खुशबू नहीं मोहताज होती कद्रदानों की. With these lines, I, Pooja Sharma, welcome you all for our annual talk show, SHATRANJ 2022. SHATRANJ is a program which in today's world trying to give clear idea of foreign policy and international relations and its impact on business. भारत कई देशों का एक बड़ा महाद्वीप है और इसे कभी भी एकीकृत राष्ट्र, कोई भी ताकत इसे कभी भी एकीकृत राष्ट्र नहीं बना सकती. But Indians crushed all such doubts. Eventually, with our resilience, cultural unity and traditions, today we achieved a compelling position in the world as an integrated nation, bringing a ray of hope for the world. India is a unique country where people read, write and discuss almost all events but neglect some of very important factors, like what should be the response of India to international events, what are the challenges to India in terms of defense, economy and international relations, how does it affect our national security. India is unique because it has discussed peace in those situations where other countries may choose to remain in war or struggle. India had been engaged in bilateral talks with Pakistan despite Pakistan's attempt of invasion in 1948, 1965, 1971 and 1999. India is continuously in dialogue with China over Ladakh deadlock. However, India is no longer a meek, submissive, third world country as it used to be a decade ago. आज जब हम भारत के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं तो मैं स्वामी विवेकानंद के शब्दों को याद करना चाहती हूँ. He said that every nation has a message to deliver, a mission to fulfill and a destiny to reach. कोरोना प्रकोप के दौरान जिस तरह भारत ने न केवल खुद को संभाला बल्कि दुनिया को भी संभालने में महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभाई, ये वास्तव में एक टर्निंग पॉइंट है. जिन भावनाओं को लेकर, जिन संस्कारों को लेकर हम पले बड़े हैं, वेदों से लेकर विवेकानंद तक, वो है सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामया. पोस्ट कोविड पैंडेमिक एंड रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर, the past world order has crumbled and the new world order is about to be born. Now the question is, do we want to remain mute spectators or we want to lead in the new situation? भारत विश्व गुरु बनने का कोई सपना नहीं देख रहा है, ये जमीनी हकीकत बन चुका है. And statistics testify this claim. India is known as the world's pharmacy hub as it supplies not just generic medicines but vaccines to the world. India supplied food grains to all those countries who were unable to buy it from open market, which includes Afghanistan, Sri Lanka and African countries. India conducted the largest rescue operation by bringing back all its citizens stuck in Afghanistan and Ukraine. India has been showing the world how to look after its people as well as other countries. Shatranj is compulsory for every nation, every state, every society and every person to unite as a nation and win over the world. This is the 5th season that we are organizing this expert talk, and for this we have decided the topic, the emerging influence of India in global arena. To elaborate this, we have with us Dr. Anand Ranganathan. भारतीय परंपरा के अनुसार किसी भी कार्यक्रम का शुभारंभ ईश्वर के स्मरण से किया जाता है. So we are starting today's event with Deep Prajwalan. For that I invite Anand sir, Dr. Balchandra Joshi, Shefali ma'am, If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. I think these lines are very much appropriate for Dr. Shefali Dani, our beloved director, because leaders must be close enough to relate to others, but far enough ahead to motivate them. I now request Shefali ma'am for her welcome address.
Thank you, Pooja. Good morning to all the students. Honorable Professor Anand, invited guests, Dr. Bhalchandra Joshi, Provost GLS University, Dr. Jokhi, Dean, Faculty of Commerce, Kuldeep sir, who has started before 5 years this series that is international on various topics on international relations. He also has joined to listen Anand sir. And all the invited guests, my colleagues, all the students, alumni of our college who just want to listen Anand sir and they especially come to meet sir. So, my heartiest welcome to all of you to this SHATRANJ 2022. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all at Faculty of Business Administration's annual talk show SHATRANJ. SHATRANJ, or the game of chess, is India's gift to the world. This game teaches strategy, critical thinking, patience, and executive functioning. It gives a player the freedom to choose between several possibilities, but each possibility will entail a series of unavoidable consequences, so that necessary increasingly limits free choice. What is true for this game is also true for the world politics. You might have a question as to why we are talking about world politics in the orientation of BBA students. Let me tell you, whatever happens in the world has a spillover effect on business. Ukraine war has sent crude prices skyrocketing, and a medical crisis in the form of COVID-19 pandemic has derailed the global economy. However, every cloud has a silver lining. Two back-to-back crises has not only changed India's role in the world politics, but also the world's perspective towards India. So where does India stand today in the world politics? Is it still a third world country which can be intimidated and pushed to margins under any pretext? Or is it on the verge of becoming Vishwaguru? To answer all these questions, we have with us Dr. Anand Ranganathan, who is an academician and scientist by profession, but a nationalistic political observer by passion. He is a consulting editor and columnist for Swarajya. Apart from writing columns, he regularly participates in debates and discussions on several news channels. And one of my very favorite news channel, Times Now, he is always there in the night show with maybe Rahul or any other, and he is always on debate, and I think since 5 years. Me, Pooja and Teja ma'am were looking to have sir in our campus, but due to COVID, after 2 years, we have decided that sir, you should be in our campus. So thank you so much again for coming here. His sensitivity towards mankind can be ascertained from the fact that he has authored 3 novels. We are profoundly fortunate to have such an eminent personality as the speaker of our talk show, SHATRANJ. On behalf of Faculty of Business Administration and GLS University, once again I extend a warm welcome to you, sir. Let me tell you that GLS University is we have established university in 2015. But it is affiliated with Gujarat Law Society, which is almost 9-decade-old trust. It was established in 1927 by Shri Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Shri Ganesh Mavlankar, and Shri Kasturbai Lalbhai. After that, I.N. Nanavati sir has put his effort to make this law society at this height, and because of none other than Shri Sudhir Nanavati, who is the president of GLS University, Because of his constant support and his vision, we started university in 2015 as a private university. In private university, we do have different programs: IT, commerce, design, law, and obviously management courses. So this is only for sir's knowledge that Trias University is basically Gujarat Law Society is 9-decade-old trust. I'm sure Professor Anand's reasoned disclosure on emerging influence of India in global arena will ignite the young minds present here. Before I sign off, I once again express my gratitude towards students for turning up in a huge number to make this event a grand success. So for yourself only, just give a big round of applause. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's indeed a matter of honor for us to have Dr. Anand Ranganathan in person here. I'll briefly introduce him. Sir completed his graduation from St. Stephen's College, Delhi. After that, he left on a Nehru Centenary Scholarship for Cambridge, UK, where he obtained his BA in Natural Sciences, his MA and his PhD. After a postdoctoral stint at Cambridge, Anand sir returned to India to join International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, Delhi, where he ran his lab for 16 years as a staff research scientist. In 2015, he joined a special center for molecular medicine, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi, and became a full-time professor in 2019. His contribution lies in the area of directed evolution and pathogenesis with special emphasis on TB and malaria. His columns have appeared in Swarajya, DNA, First Post and News Laundry. He is also a consulting editor of Swarajya. Anand sir has written 3 books, all novels: The Land of the Wilted Rose, For Love and Honor, The Rat Eater, and his forthcoming book is on India's forgotten scientists. It's such a privilege. You exert huge influence on our lives, especially to young generations who are going to hear you, sir. Surely it has all capacity to bring a complete redirection to their thoughts, opinion and ideology for life and country. I request Dr. Balchandra Joshi, Provost GLS University, to welcome Anand sir with flowers. Thank you so much, sir. The moment has arrived for which we all are eagerly waiting. Now, I would request Anand sir to come on the stage and enlighten us with his thought-provoking words.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, first of all, to the faculty and staff and the director and the provost of JLS University for inviting me. This is an absolutely marvelous audience. So many young students, absolutely brilliant. I'm used to giving talks in JNU, where the age of the students resemble those sitting in the front row. So it's really wonderful to have such really young minds. And the idea of this session, if I can call it not just a talk, is to keep my talk as brief as possible and judging by the interests, take in as many questions as possible so that we can have a very interactive session. So once again, let me begin first by thanking the GLS University for inviting me for this wonderful talk come session in absolutely wonderful city, Ahmedabad, and it's such a very pertinent topic that you've chosen, emerging influence of India in global arena. And can I say that if or when India has an influence in the global arena, increasing influence, it would, I'm certain of it, largely be because of Gujarat having an influence. And I don't just say this because our Prime Minister and the Home Minister hail from Gujarat. In fact, after my session or my talk ends, I would like to convince you that it is despite them being from Gujarat, but because of Gujarat that we will have an increasing influence. So I think it's just a matter of call it our fate or tragedy that so many lovely ideas, fantastic intentions are not able to bear fruit in this country, despite what the Prime Minister wants or a Gujarati wants. There are so many other parameters that come together, but as it is, I think at the end of the day, the will of the Gujarati people would come through. And that will is enterprise, that will is capitalism, that will is hard work, that will is not using other person's money, as Margaret Thatcher said. The thing about socialism is that it works very well until you run out of other people's money. Gujaratis have never cared about other people's money. Other people have cared about Gujarati money. So let me begin by, of course, I have divided what I want to say in the next half an hour before I start taking lots of questions, and I've kept even more double the time than I was advised to keep for question and answer session because it's such a lovely audience, young minds. Let me begin by delving straight into the issues that I want to talk about. That would be science, economy, defense, and all the other areas that we think India must play an increasing role in the global arena. But before I do that, I also have to say this, that I can spend the next 40 minutes elaborating on the wonderful successes we've had. I really can. But that is what politicians do. So if you had invited a politician cutting across party lines, he would have talked on for the next 3 hours about the wonderful things that India has achieved. We know those wonderful things. But we want India to achieve even more. And for that reason alone, we must be very critical of where we have failed. Because unless we identify where we failed, we will not be able to succeed in those areas where we failed right now. And India can only become a global power if it succeeds in the areas that it has failed of its own volition or it has been forced to fail by the global community. Remember, we are in a competitive, intensely competitive world. Nobody wants us to be a superpower. We Indians want ourselves, and that too, a lot of Indians also don't want India to be a superpower, but that's another matter. So let me begin by framing this very nice title appropriately. Let's go back to, let's say, the 50s and the 60s. Can you tell me any domain, science, technology, medicine, defense, agriculture, economy, that we were world beaters in the 1950s or 60s? Anyone? Just as I thought. Anyone? Any one domain in which we were world beaters in the 1950s and 60s? So there might be a few domains, but the fact that all of you, and I include myself in that whole team out here, are taking so long to even think of one domain, I think that kind of rests my case, doesn't it? It kind of tells you that as late as 50 years ago, 60 years ago, there wasn't a single thing in which we quote unquote scared the world or the world looked up to us. Not one. In science, in defense, certainly not in agriculture, the Green Revolution hasn't happened. In defense, no. In so many areas, any area you think of, maybe Hindi films, possible one. But other than that, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, we had a begging bowl. From there to 2022, to asking this question again, I think that's very creditable. But it has happened because of Indians and despite Indian politicians. That is what you need to remember. And can I ask you right now, in 2022, can you name a domain in which we are world beaters, the world looks up to us? So many hands have gone up. And yes, that lady there, yes. Agriculture? What exactly in agriculture are we world beaters? Okay. Right.
And film industry?
Yes. Film industry, alright, okay.
The IT and pharma is the major contributor to the...
Correct.
Yes.
So in almost every domain, we are either going to be world beaters or competing very hard.
So one more,
Yes.
medical science, we have shown the world how to come over the challenges of COVID, and in fact we have provided treatment to almost all the countries, and now countries are looking forward to India for getting a treatment that is creditable,
Yes.
and I really appreciate Indian government for that. Thank you.
Thank you. So, as you saw in the last 60 years, that's all it takes. That is all it takes for a nation to be completely down and out, destroyed, the world laughing at us. Without Green Revolution, we are at the mercy of third-class, third-rate American wheat infected with insects, coming to us, that too after every 4 or 5 months being shipped, rotting, at the mercy of that, at the mercy of the elements, at the mercy of famine, at the mercy of drought. And in 60 years, we are now so many areas, so many hands have gone up. We started competing. In many areas, we are leading. And in the next 20 to 30 years, we're almost certain that we would be world beaters in most, if not all, of those areas. Now, what do you put that down to? Do you put that down to a politician or an ideology? Do you put that down to a government policy? I would say no, absolutely not. Can you tell me what you put that down to? If there is one thing that you want to put it down to. I know it's a very difficult question, it's a very broad question. Mindset of the people.
Private enterprise.
That's right. More than the mindset, it is the private enterprise. It is capitalism. It is not socialism.
Credit goes to some education also.
Yes, yes, no doubt, no doubt. But I know it is very harsh, and I'm here to be very intensely critical, in fact, so critical that you would possibly, many of you would, it's a very harsh word again, would not like what I say, but trust me, if we are to move forward, if we are to be a power to reckon with, we have to realize that we have to be more critical than anyone else is critical about India. Because we want India to succeed, and to do that, we need to be more critical. So I put to you that if we have come to this situation where we are competing very strongly, in fact, and coming up to the top in many areas, it is because of what happened 30 years ago. It is not what happened 50 years ago or 60 years ago or any government policy. It is because for the first time in our independent history, we were unshackled. I'm talking of 1991, I'm talking of liberalization. I'm talking of when we were unshackled, we were almost set free to do what we really were capable of, to show the world what we were capable of. And how did that happen? I know many of you would not like my saying this, but it did not happen because of an Indian. Many people, perhaps rightly so, including I, credit Dr. Manmohan Singh and P.V. Narasimha Rao for bringing in or heralding the liberalization. But they wouldn't have managed to do so had the foreign banks, the IMF, the Americans, the World Bank not pressurized us to change our ways. That is the way, that is the cruelty of history. In fact, R.K. Lakshman had a fantastic cartoon on this, where P.V. Narasimha Rao and Manmohan Singh are emerging from a meeting from IMF and World Bank, and Narasimha Rao is telling Manmohan Singh, no, nobody twisted our arms, and their arms are totally twisted. Some of them are walking like that. The fact of the matter is that we could not have gone on. Politicians hardly ever take strong decisions. And if they do, those decisions, they are forced to backtrack. I'll give you examples. Prime Minister Modi is a prime example of that. I'll come to that. So the fact remains that what Manmohan Singh and what Narasimha Rao did rescued this country is not because of whether they wanted to do it or not. Sure, you can say they wanted to do it, but the fact is they were able to achieve it because of external pressure. The same we will see happening with Sri Lanka. External pressure will force it to improve. We have seen it happen with Greece to a limited extent. We have seen it happen in a lot of countries that were down in the doldrums of basket cases or begging bowls, but then they were forced to change. Many times the change is forced upon us not through internal strength, but through external force. And the reason for that is, of course, vote bank politics. Nobody wants to change. In fact, if you remember, thank God in Gujarat, the communists don't win any votes. In fact, Nota gets more votes than communists. But if there was one party that publicly derided and blocked roads and protested against liberalization, they were the communists. They said this is terrible for the country. This is going to take the country down in the doldrums back 50 years, 60 years. In fact, it has done just the opposite. India has been saved by 1991 liberalization. We had to mortgage our gold. Our foreign reserves that are today $600 billion were $0.6 billion. They weren't even $1 billion in 1990. We loaded our gold onto a ship, and the ship sailed off the port of Mumbai, and it was about to reach England, Bank of England, mortgaged. That is how dire the situation was. And from there, 30 years down, we are competing with the world. We are world beaters in a lot of domains. But if I have to be critical, I have to limit myself to choosing 3 or 4 domains and to prove to you, to show you that we are still shackled. That of course we have been unshackled 30 years ago, but still there are some chains that remain that we are almost struggling. It's almost as if we are in a runner, an athlete is practicing, and you know how athletes practice before they come on to their 100 meters or sprint. They tie a tire around themselves, their necks, and they start running. So there is a resistance. There is a tire that has been tied to us, and we have been asked to run. Now that is unfair, but that is politics. And that is what this government and all the governments before it were doing, so that they can keep on winning elections. But at the end of the day, what really matters is that our country should progress. So let me quickly pick out regions. Somebody mentioned, let me begin with science because I am from that domain. There is no doubt that we have improved dramatically. The world is our oyster. The world may not look up to us in terms of science as yet, But all the signs are there that in the next 20 to 30 years, we are going to shine in this domain. The fact of the matter is that when I talked about pre-green revolution and how we were begging bowls, the fact is that we were saved in the 1960s by Lal Bahadur Shastri and his agriculture minister, and of course Borlaug. You remember his high yielding wheat varieties, and he remains one of those incredible scientists who won the Nobel Prize, but for peace, not for the science that he done, for the incredible job that he did for long. So if India owes its prosperity in no small measure to the scientist Borlaug. And Green Revolution transformed almost overnight our scenario. It started looking brighter. So from the 1960s, indeed, 1916 onwards, and if the health of a nation improves, then certainly the workforce, the health of the workforce improves. You have more money, you have more labor, you have a potential to unleash what you're capable of. Someone mentioned about vaccine, no doubt about it. No doubt that India is a force to reckon with. But here again, if I'm to be critical, and I'm going to be critical in all these domains so that we learn something from it. We have been a world vaccine hub for about 10-15 years. India is recognized as the vaccine hub, world vaccine hub. But again, the fact remains that no doubt one of the great achievements, not only of this government, but of India, I would say, is that in a limited period of 1.5 years, we have now administered 2 billion doses, which is absolutely astounding. We have vaccinated all Indians almost twice over. This kind of thing is almost unheard of. I remember 1.5 years ago, there were some analysts who were hoping that the New Zealand Prime Minister comes to India and becomes our Prime Minister. New Zealand still hasn't administered all its population the vaccine, and we have done it almost twice over. New Zealand has a population which is possibly the population of Ahmedabad, 5 to 10 million people, or 1/3 of Delhi. So much for what analysts say and predict. But the fact of the matter is that India has indeed also gone through catastrophic COVID waves. If not the first COVID wave, certainly the second COVID wave was absolutely catastrophic. Gujarat really felt the brunt, but more than Gujarat, it was, if you remember, the metros, Delhi, Mumbai, especially UP, a lot of areas where oxygen was a problem. But it all boils down to, even at that stage, vaccines. A vaccine against COVID would have saved lives, even in the second wave, which, as I said, was catastrophic. 1% vaccinated meant 1 oxygen cylinder less. If only our scientists, if only our policymakers, if only our advisors to the Prime Minister understood this simple thing, that it is a catastrophic infection, we need to vaccinate as many people as fast as possible. Did we do that? If we are to be critical and honest, the answer is yes. Yes, we have vaccinated 1 billion people twice over. Yes, we've done it. But could we have done it faster? The answer is yes. And I'll tell you that the facts are all there. On 12th of Jan, the genome sequence of COVID-19 was published on 12th of January 2020. On 13th of January, Moderna applied for a patent for its vaccine. Within 24 hours, it had devised the vaccine strategy, it had applied for a patent, it had started working on it. America is not the vaccine hub. Moderna is a new company. We were supposed to be the vaccine hub. We have all the potential. We have been making vaccines, billions and billions of doses of vaccines, taking care of multiple diseases. What happened? Let me give you another example. You talk of inactivated virus, which of course the Bharat Biotech vaccine, its co-vaccine, is inactivated virus, whereas Covishield is the adeno platform-based virus that incidentally we have not made but we have produced. It's the Oxford and AstraZeneca that have made that vaccine. We have made co-vaccine, which you take the virus, you inactivate it using a chemical, and then you use that, and then that acts as a vaccine. It triggers your immune system to make antibodies against the proteins of that virus, so that when the real virus attacks you, your antibodies are waiting for those very proteins and it kills the virus. We got that virus, which Bharat Biotech inactivated, after 3 months. 3 months after America got that virus. 3 months after England got that virus. 3 months even after Brazil got that virus. Of course, China had that virus because maybe China made that virus, but that's a different matter. Why did it take us 3 months to get that virus? Those 3 months could have saved millions, could have potentially saved lakhs, could have avoided lakhs of deaths in the second wave. Because we know through ICMR data that those who were vaccinated, 99% of them are still alive to see the next day. But those who weren't, many of them died. Many of them also had comorbidity, but that's another matter. Why did it take India, a vaccine hub, 3 months to get hold of that virus and then give it to Bharat Biotech, culture it, inactivate it, and then use it as a vaccine? We have to ask these questions. Otherwise, why do we call ourselves a vaccine hub? So, I leave that question open to you to answer, that if, yes, we were world beaters, yes, we are going to influence the world, but at the same time, in a domain that we were supposed to be world beaters, we came out short. We should have got the vaccine before anyone else, any other country got that vaccine, and we should have got the vaccine 3 or 4 months before we actually started administering it. We administered it on 1st of January 2021. We should have administered it way back in maybe November or October of 2020. That is how fast things move in a pandemic. Because the idea was to save lives. The idea was not to make money. The idea was not to see ourselves as a Vishwa Guru or a world beater. The idea was to save people. If we were not able to do that, if we had tried and failed, I wouldn't have minded. But we did not try. That is a hiccup for me. So we have to improve. If next time you have, and pandemics will come, they'll keep on coming. Abhi to saans lene ka bhi time nahi hai. There's another one on the anvil, and people are saying monkeypox and all those. God knows what China is coming up next in its lab. But the fact of the matter is, we have to be ready for it. We have to have our scientific advisor tell the Prime Minister that, look, there is a virus that could be causing a potential pandemic. I want that vaccine to be designed within 24 hours. I want that strain within a day. Get it for me. I don't care how you do it. Then leave it to me to make the vaccine. That did not happen. That critical rate-determining step did not happen. So it was not due to the inefficiency of Bharat Biotech or any other company or Poonawalla or anyone else. In chemistry, you have what is called the rate-determining step that determines how fast or slow your reaction would go. The rate-determining step was to be decided at the very top, not at the level of the scientists or the planners or the people who would execute the idea. That is where we fall. But certainly, I hope we have learned a lesson. In other scientific domains, I think it is just a question of time when we would be world beaters. I don't even have to mention in space research, we are already world beaters in sending satellites into space. 60 years ago, you've seen that iconic photograph of the head of a rocket being transported on the back of a bicycle carrier. But right now, from there, 60 years to, we are sending hundreds, if not thousands of satellites of more than 24 countries into space at a third or fourth the cost of what other Western nations are doing. So there is intense competition. We have to keep on improving, and that is the thing that private enterprise tells you, that socialism cannot compete. You need capitalists, you need enterprise, you need to be on your toes all the time. There was a time in 2003, 2004 when I'm sure the executives of Nokia thought that we are going to be trillionaires in 10 years' time, or BlackBerry, that nothing can overpower us. Where are they now? Who uses Nokia? Maybe Rahul Gandhi does, but other than that, I don't know if anyone else does. The point is, you have to compete. We are in a Darwinian evolution every second of our existence. And our enterprises, our companies, our organizations are not immune to this Darwinian evolution. Humans are evolving, animals are evolving, bacteria are evolving, but so are our enterprises. They are subject to these competitions, and when you talk of management, when you talk of business administration, that is the nub of the thing. Unless you compete, you cannot be a world leader. So everything has to be privatized. The way is very clear. Everything has to, and I'll come to why right now I feel education, there is a role to play for government in health, in education, and a lot of other sectors. I am for welfare state, I'll explain to you why, and why this is not socialism. But the fact of the matter is that in the long run, we have to be privatizing almost everything. Almost everything. I say almost because there are still some areas where we don't want to privatize. Defense obviously being one in a very major way. But the fact remains that we have learned in the last 30 years to compete, and that is what I meant when we were unshackled for the first time. That was for the first time in 40 years after our independence that we were unshackled. And you can see the result. You can see the result in health parameters. Infant mortality has gone down. Maternal mortality has gone down. Most of the children are now safe from debilitating diseases. Polio is almost eradicated. Of course, there are a few pockets left. So in every parameter, we are improving. Why? It's because of liberalization, because we unshackled our potential. In science, it is going to be the same. But if ISRO is to succeed, then we have to bring in as many private players as possible. And here, very quickly, I talk of defense. In 1990, and this is where foresight of people is very important. We had Dr. Kalam. He started what is called the import ratio index, i.e., how much of the defense equipment are we importing? And he said by 2005 we should reduce it to 30%. That means 70% of all our defense purchase has to be indigenous, so-called Atmanirbhar Bharat, that Dr. Kalam put in practice in a policy in 1990. It has taken us 32 years to almost realize it. This year, we have spent out of our defense budget 64% of it on buying indigenous. 64. So it's not yet 70%, but it is as close as it has ever been. 30 years it has taken. We still have 30% of our equipment that we buy from abroad. India still remains the world's second largest arms importer. But we are improving. So in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time, we would be there. We've started exporting a lot of what we make as well. And that's the only way you can exert influence. The only way to exert influence is to show the world and to make the world use your product. And that product can be a physical product, that product can be a mental product, but it has to be an Indian product. That is the only way you will exert your influence. That product can be a soft power product, but soft powers never become hard powers. Hard powers always carry along this tag of soft powers. So yes, we can be great in arts, music, writing, but that's not why the world would respect us. That's why the world would like us. The world would respect and like us if we were hard power as well as soft power. So I've talked about science. Let me talk about why. When I said in the beginning that if India is to have an influence on the world, it would be because of Gujarat. And I put in a caveat of why I don't include our Prime Minister Modi in that. And I'll give you an example. One of the greatest, most sought after, most important reforms in independent India, or I would even venture to say in our history, were these so-called farm bills. they were so important for us that they would have catapulted India right now within 10-15 years into a middle income economy. And by that I mean right now our GDP, by the way, what matters is always GDP per capita, is never GDP. So we might be a 3 trillion economy, but our GDP per capita is still only $2,500. By middle income economy, I mean the GDP per capita would be around $15,000 to $16,000, $20,000. Within 10-15 years, it would have catapulted us. And what were those 3 simple farm reforms? One was you are giving the farmer the choice of using a government marketplace APMC or going private. 2 was you are removing or reframing Essential Commodities Act. And the 3rd was you're bringing in contract farming. These 3 would have transformed us, and I'll give you the data why. And Mr. Modi must have thought that this is going to be one of the easiest reforms to implement, to pull through. Why? Because it was there in the manifestos of all opposition parties. If you look at the 2019 Congress manifesto on page 19, section 12, I know it by heart, almost verbatim these 3 farm laws are there. So Mr. Modi would have thought, well, I'm implementing what these guys have promised. Why on earth would they oppose? Little did he know that in our country, people don't want India to succeed. People want political parties to succeed. That was the tragedy that happened. That the very same people who wanted these farm reforms but didn't have the guts, when Modi had the guts, he brought in the farm reform. Those very same people call these as black laws. And it is a tragedy, compounded tragedy in our country that those farm bills or farm laws were repealed. And I'll give you the example why it will take us another 20 to 30 years to have an influence without those farm laws. And the reason for that is that if any country is to succeed, it cannot succeed because of agriculture. It has to succeed without agriculture. 82% of Indian households right now are dependent on agriculture. 44% of our active labor force, which is 515 million Indians, is involved in agriculture. In the West, it is 2% to 3%. Ours is 44%. Hundreds of millions of Indians are dependent, are working in an area, in a domain that contributes only 12.5% to 13% to our GDP. It is unsustainable. It is the most inflexible economic domains. It is at the mercy of elements, of drought, of floods, of ravages, of pests, of complete annihilation, of destruction. 95% of the farmers are still not insured. This is the sector, if at all there was a sector, crying out for reforms. I'll give you one other example how devastated I feel as an Indian that these reforms were repealed. India is the world's 2nd largest producer of sugarcane. Every year we produce 350 billion kilograms of sugarcane. Sugarcane takes up only 9% of the arable land, agriculture land, but it requires 78% of water. The amount of sugarcane that we grow requires 1 quadrillion liters of irrigation water. Quadrillion liters. To give you an idea of how much 1 quadrillion is, it is equivalent to the water that is present in not 1 but 10 Ganga Sagar dams. That is the amount of water we require to make sugarcane. And in the last 5 years, the sugar prices have halved. Millions of farmers have been devastated. It is simply not sustainable environmentally, logically, agriculturally. But what is this government doing? The government is assuring the farmers that no matter what happens, no matter how much sugar prices decrease, no matter how much water table goes down, we will keep on buying your sugar cane, the equivalent of MSP. In fact, our politicians are proud of this policy, cutting across party lines. Riots happen within political parties if one politician says, no, this is wrong, this is not the kind of India that will progress. And that is why Yogi Adityanath during the UP elections was forced to be proud. Maybe he was genuinely proud of this action. But I genuinely call this an anti-Indian action. If at all there is something which is anti-national, surely this is it. Why do we refuse to look not just 50 years ahead, but even 10, 15 years ahead? This is devastating. You know our buffer supply is supposed to be only 33 million tons of rice. That is how much we are supposed to store. Right now, our FCI godowns have 110 million tons of rice. 60 million tons extra. Who is eating that rice? Rats. If rats could vote, maybe some of them do. Snakes do, that's another matter. But the fact of the matter is, what are we doing? How can we influence the global arena if you don't look inwards, if you don't improve? What is the obvious thing to improve? And this was the obvious thing to improve. The Essential Commodities Act would have unshackled not only farmers, but also entrepreneurs, businessmen. They could make huge godowns. Farmers could grow their produce and store it all year round, instead of being at the mercy of government who would raid their godowns and arrest them by putting the ECA Act. They could have a choice of going to a mandi of their own choice, of selling the produce at the price that they want to sell. They could get in contract farming. That incidentally Congress ruled states had already implemented, and still they went back. Still they called these black laws. So how can we show our face to the world when something that is crying out for these reforms, we ourselves repeat? Is that not a tragedy, I ask you, the young minds? Every generation we feel a speaker comes up and says, well, I hope my next generation will be able to fulfill the promise. Sir is there, ma'am are there. They have given the same speech that I am giving right now. But do we want this can to be carried again and again and again without rectifying the mistakes? Before I come to the end of my talk, I want to take another issue that may again be very hurtful, very close to your heart, which is that one of the reasons why I really love what the Prime Minister said in 2013 and said, look, this man can work for India, was his one statement, that is, the government has no business to be in business. He said this time and again in 2013. And I said, not only is this man good for India, he is a Gujarati by heart and by blood. But the proof, as they say, of the pudding is in the eating. In the last 8 years of Modi Sarkar, the government has done precious little else than being in the business of doing business. Why is that? Do you know that 21% of our annual allocated budget, I know these numbers are scary, but to the young minds, it is the fact and the numbers that drive home a point. Every year we only have around 28 to 30 lakhs to disburse. The finance ministry comes up in the budget, we only have 30 lakhs to disburse, 30 lakh crores, not 30 lakhs, 30 lakh crores to disburse. 21% of that goes in propping up public sector units. We have 1,825 public sector units. 400 of them are non-functional, but we are still propping them up. Did you know that only last year the government had the courage, despite protests and roadblocks, to completely stop paying 1,200 crores that it was doing every year since 1987, when the United Nations said chlorofluorocarbons shall be banned. We still had a public sector unit that was making chlorofluorocarbons. It stopped making it, but we were paying the people who were hired in this Hindustan
Fluorocarbon Limited or whatever its name was. For 30 years. Why? When we know that socialism makes it impossible for a government-run organization to compete with the best in the world. Impossible. And for those who say that we do have profit-making Navratna, sure, out of 2,000 odd public sector units, we have 9 that are making profit. But you don't realize that if you were to unshackle them, if you were to privatize, they would probably make 100 times the profit that they're making right now. Why do I say government has no business to be in business? Why did Mr. Modi say that? Because he knows it. He knows that any government enterprise is at the pitiful mercy of the politician. It's a cash cow. That is what our banks have become. If you look at the NPAs, they total 10 lakh crores. Our states have a liability of more than 56 lakh crores. When we lament what is happening to Sri Lanka, we forget that many of our states are in a situation which is worse than Sri Lanka. And yet, we somehow believe mythically that there is always a cash cow, that there is always something that we can put our hand in and extract money. I know I come from a state whose chief minister is now campaigning vigorously in your state, promising everything which is free. You know. But the fact of the matter is, ultimately somebody would have to pay for it.
Yes.
You will be paying for it. I will be paying for it. Kejriwal or Modi or they won't be paying for it. It is us. And how will we pay for it? We will pay for it with another 1991-1990 crisis that will come. These crises are like crests and troughs. They always come, and they come because our politicians keep repeating the mistakes that they know. And that is what actually communism is. Communism is repeating the mistakes of earlier societies. We know all around us. In science, you would be termed a fool if you were to start repeating an experiment. But in real life and politics, we still have communists, don't we? They have seen what happened to Soviet Union. They've seen what happened to Cambodia. They've seen what happened to every single communist country that espoused communism, including Cuba, including China. They've seen it all. And yet we have communists in this country. Most welcome to do that. But the fact of the matter is, never repeat a failed experiment. So, we've talked about science, how we failed to do what we should have done. We've talked about agriculture, how we fail to do, even today, what we must do. We've talked about to generate money, capitalism. Socialism cannot. Why are we still having public sector banks? Why is government still in the business of doing business? Last couple of things that are very important, especially to the young minds, is what we are doing to the environment. And here I am not one of those Greenpeace placard carrying activists who just for the heck of it would make a picket outside the RA forest without realizing that the film city of RA is 20 times bigger than the metro shed that would be not only carbon neutral but actually help in mitigating a lot of carbon because of the metro. And I have always said this, for Greenpeace, energy is rubbing stones square. It's not MC square. And I always go for cost-benefit analysis. I'm not a hypocrite. I know that you need development, you need energy, you need roads, you need highways, you need infrastructure. And for that, everything, if you need that, will come at the environment cost. Of course it does. There always has to be a cost-benefit analysis, and I'm glad that the government and people are at least thinking about it. But the fact of the matter is twofold. One, let no one No one in the world accused India of not thinking about it. We are the one who are the proud signatory to the Paris Climate Deal, even though we know that all those Western nations, they became prosperous by completely beating down and destroying the environment, using coal, using thermal power. And now they are the ones teaching us. In spite of that, in spite of extreme costs to our development, we are a proud signatory to the Paris Climate Deal. America, Trump refused to. America refused to, but we did. That's point number one. Point number two is, when there are solutions that are in front of us, why again, like we did in the domain of agriculture, are we not implementing? Let me give you just one example. In fact, let me give you the exact data because I don't want to be wrong. The water availability per capita in 1991 in India was 2,309 cubic meters. In 2011, it reduced to 1,545 cubic meters. In 2017, it reduced to 1,236 cubic meters. In 2021, it is 1,100 cubic meters. In 30 years, from 2,300 cubic meters to 1,100 cubic meters is the water availability per capita. This is what we've done in 30 years. That is the age, the average age of a generation and a half. Have you realized what catastrophic consequence this is going to bring? Catastrophic. Have you realized the link it has to our agriculture, where we keep on, because of political pressure of so many, especially Maharashtra politicians, the sugar lobby, we keep on growing sugarcane. Have you realized the importance of water? Have you realized that 65% of the rainwater of the water of our rivers, rainwater, it flows into the sea every year? 65%. Do we know that when the Prime Minister candidate, Mr. Modi in 2013 said one of the first priorities of my tenure would be to link rivers. Scientists were proud of it. Here were the steps that they were aching every politician should be taking. Government has no business to be in business. I'm going to reform agriculture. I'm going to link rivers. These are the things that are going to catapult us. But what has happened? The Supreme Court has said, you must link rivers. 2017, Supreme Court judgment. Have we linked a river? Where is this 65% water going? Why is the water level reducing so drastically? So these are the issues that we have to look inwards rather than outwards. Because if we don't look inward, we are always looking outside. We are always what I call Western aping. And when you are Western aping, you can always be second best. You will never be best. When you start doing what the Western nations were doing and you're only a couple of years behind, remember, on paper you might be a couple of years behind, but in reality what they have not told you is you're at least a decade behind. You will always be catching up. We have to stand on our feet, 2 feet. We have to realize that it is not a Western power or Western or Eastern power that are stopping us from doing it, but we ourselves. And the compounded tragedy is that, yes, I blame the Prime Minister for repealing the farm laws, but more than that, aren't there supposed to be 3 other pillars that hoist our democracy? The media that never once criticized all those blocking roads and highways for 1.5 years. The executive that never removed those people. And the judiciary. I already have a contempt notice on me, so I don't want to go very hard on the judiciary. But the fact of the matter is that the judiciary sold us down. It came in the hands of the then Chief Justice of India, and he stayed the farm laws. And it later on transpired that 86% of the farmer associates, they were for the farm. 86%. And why it did not have any effect of Supreme Court? Because Supreme Court said, where are the people who are pro-farm law? I only see people who are anti-farm law. That one comment by the Chief Justice devastated me, because what it meant was that if you want something good for this country, then all of you must become anarchists and come onto the streets. Is that what you're supposed to do, rather than study or rather invent things or rather than work for the betterment of the country? To come onto the streets, to blockade streets, highways for a year, to create mayhem, stone pelting? In effect, that is what Supreme Court said. I don't see any pro-farm protesters. So obviously, there must be something wrong. Let me stay these farmers. This is the tragedy of the country. The tragedy is not just of the political class. The tragedy is of the judiciary. It is compounded by the executive that is subservient to not only the judiciary but the political class, but also of the media. Very finally, because I'm running out of time as well, I want to leave as much time as possible for question and answer session. When we become a middle income economy, it's not a question of if, but when. 10 years down the line, maybe 15, 20 years down the line, when one of you will be standing here and giving this lecture, we would possibly be having a GDP per capita of $10,000, hopefully. When we do that, that is when our real test begins. Because that is when stomachs are full. Then the brain starts working. People stop being modern day hunter and gatherers. Then people think of revolution. People think of what is wrong. I want to change that. That is when we require complete freedom of mind and speech and expression. That is when we must respect a dissenting voice, because that is where ideas are going to come from. Manufacturing will allow us to compete with the world, but it is always the idea that will allow us to be the best in the world. That one idea, half page, one line idea in science, technology, associations, sociology, humanities, everything is intertwined now. But that idea can only come when we respect each other's disagreements, dissent. And the way we are going, the way we are not allowing others to express themselves, the way religion is seeping into in our houses, in our minds, this so-called rising damp, as I call it, where a person is arrested and a price is put on her head merely for quoting from a book. 20 years down the line, do we want to be that India where if you quote from a hadith or a religious scripture, there are hundreds and thousands who pour onto the street and who want to kill you? Is this what we want our India to become? That is the fifth domain that I wanted to discuss. And very briefly, before I end, I put it to you, again rather controversially, that we were a banana republic from the moment we became a republic. We haven't become a banana republic in the last 10 years. What is the hallmark of banana republic? The hallmark is that I know when I am offended. I will not allow you to say, because what you said offends me. Banana republic is delving into this grey, into subjectivity, is deciding what is wrong and what is right, what is offensive and what is not. And if you think it is our problem, I disagree with you. This is what we put our forefathers who wrote our constitution, our first prime minister, to make sure that the future generations do not suffer because of what they are doing. But they did not listen. They brought in the First Amendment. They curbed our free speech. They arrested, jailed editors for merely criticizing the first government. They even banned the harmonium for crying out loud. They banned everything they could lay sight to. But the one thing they did not ban were these blind historians who wrote glowing tributes to them as if they were paragons of protectors of freedom of speech and expression. That Nehru protected, he was a liberal. The truth was just the opposite. So if there is something that is linked to this fifth domain, it is the field of academia. It is our collective responsibility to make sure that this stays as apolitical as possible. We cannot prevent politicians from delving into a domain which gives them vote, like farmer or PSU bankers or people who work in government jobs, in defense sector. But surely, as all of us in the domain of academia, we have our responsibility to make sure that the government, past, present, future, do not creep their tentacles and have us in their grip. For that is the single most thing that will prevent us from being an influence, because that will stop us from openly being critical of other person's ideas. And if you are not allowed to be critical of other person's ideas, you are by definition afraid to speak out your own ideas. So these are the 5 domains that I thought I would discuss, being very critical, while at the same time really being proud in one sense. I know my whole lecture has been very critical, and you might be thinking, is this guy only thinks of glass being not just half full, but barely some liquid in the bottom of the glass? No, that's not the case. I know what our potential is, but we're running out of time. I don't have the patience. I certainly don't because of my age, but none of you should have the patience to wait to bring these changes. I shall end there and ask for some questions. Thank you so much.
Interaction. I would request students to hand over questions this side so that we can have really a very fruitful interaction.
I would like to ask, along with the government, aren't we the people of this country responsible too? You talked about 3 months delay in the vaccine. I think leaving that period aside, it would have been still faster than it was if there were no home science vaccines or rumors that vaccines will spread infertility. Unless our people will know what is right for them, how will we emerge and be the leaders globally?
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. To that, I would say that science does not work on the path of least resistance. So we are not concerned about the people who will put resistance in our path. That would be there. At the end of the day, we are concerned with delivering a product. That is what the vaccine was. It was a promise to deliver a product. And why was delivering a product? Let me compare it with Tejas. All of you know Tejas, light combat aircraft. Do you know who planned first for Tejas? Do you know the name of the Prime Minister? Take a guess.
Atal Bihari Vajpayee.
No, even before that. During the reign of Atalji, it had started doing its flight tests. So, I'm talking of 20 years. But it was like 40 years. So when you talk of the path, when you talk of delivering a product, ultimately Tejas is also based on Indian science and technology. Of course, a lot of it is you have imported technology. But at the end of the day, you are supposed to deliver a product, and that product is going to be purchased by either foreign countries or our own defense forces. It has been 40 years. Are we protesting? Are we clamoring for it? No, because we're not dying because India doesn't have Tejas, right? So the criticality was the speed with which that product has to be delivered. So you are absolutely right that some politicians wanted to scuttle it. They started saying derisively, this is Modi vaccine, this will cause impotency, we will not use it, and all those things. But the fact of the matter is that was immaterial. What mattered was saving a life that possibly doesn't even know who the Prime Minister is in the deep rural crevice of India where people do not have a voting card. Saving that life. That was the responsibility of the science, and where every second mattered. It wasn't a question of delivering it in 40 years. It was a question of delivering it as soon as possible.
Hello, sir. Sir, how do we people make the politicians in charge put India first, make them prioritize India over their own vested interest?
Now that is, I really don't know how to answer it, because that is the one answer that everyone is looking for. How do we make the politicians accountable? And I think the real answer is, to be honest, to disappoint you, you really can't. You can't. And I'll tell you why. Because the politician always goes for his constituency. He knows it is a matter of life and death for him. So if there is someone who is going to vote for him, and his step is going to take India back years, he will take that step. He actually will. Because ultimately he doesn't care for the long run. He cares for the next 5 years, and to be honest, we humans are conditioned to rationalize to the point of justifying our wrong steps. We always do that. So there are many of my right-wing, non-left friends who said that, look, we should be happy that we have a government where at least very slowly these steps are automatically being taken. Apne aap hi, we are providing a nice feel for it. It might not be doing a lot, it might not be doing fast enough, but come se kam, if we have provided a kind of an atmosphere for doing that. I think that is a moral justification for not doing anything. As P.V. Narasimha Rao said, to not take a decision is also to take a decision. That is one of his most famous remarks. So you want a glaring example of, this question was the overturning of the Supreme Court Shah Banu judgment. The government had absolutely no role to do it. But it did it because it wanted to placate a community, a vote bank. It did it going against a woman. It did it going against the Supreme Court. The same is with the bank nationalization. It put us back decades. It was a Supreme Court judgment, and the government, Indira Gandhi, went against it because it wanted a cash cow. And you know what happened during emergencies. There's a very famous case of Sanjay Gandhi, almost blackmailing the chairman of, I think it was State Bank or some other, public sector owned bank. I want these many millions right now. He will slap that person. That is what happens. When government control things, they almost always work for their interests or for the interests of their vote bank. So, in very short, one word answer is no, we would never. And I don't have the solution because I do not advocate anything other than democracy. Democracy is, as they say, is the least of all evils. But the fact is, where do you go? It is certainly for a young person, it is demoralizing to the point of, capitulation. When the Supreme Court says, where are the people who are a pro step? I don't see them on the streets. If tomorrow there is something that is good coming out of a vaccine, the Supreme Court says, where are the scientists who are for that pro thing? Why are they in the labs working? Get them on the streets. Essentially, that is what people are. So, if anarchy is to be ingrained in us, then I'm afraid we are, this is not the kind of nation that you want to influence the world.
Good morning, sir. I am Neeraj Lalwani, and you quoted that to build in the global arena, people are needed to follow. But doesn't people need a good leader who can lead the country while in the same time it will have a positive output for everyone? Like as of now, India is in the Shri Narendra Modi's supremacy. What is the future aspect of leader when most of the states are being run by the same political mindset?
Yes, I think that's a very important question. Do we really need a leader at all? Considering that the Supreme Court and the courts now think that they are above the legislature. They are entering into the domain where they are deciding the size of the chappal, the size of the aloo bota. And this is true. There is a Supreme Court judgment on how much aloo should there be in an aloo bota. What is the point? What is the point of a leader like Narendra Modi saying that these are the farm laws? They were there in every opposition manifesto. Every farmer would be happy with this. This is going to catapult us into the middle income economy within 10 years. This is going to privatize. This is going to be a boon for all the other allied sectors. It is going to be a real cash spinner. And then a year down the line, he has to repeat it. Is that the leader we want? Answer is no. But then again, was Modi left with any choice? I personally would say, if I have to be really hard and say brutally honest, yes, he did. He should have stuck around. But he is a politician as well. Had he stuck around, farmers would have possibly. I think the biggest step for him to take this step was the Supreme Court not agreeing with him. I think that was really devastating when he saw that Supreme Court has said this, what is essentially a legislative action. There was very little hope. But to answer your question more deeply, when you say a leader, I am assuming you mean a political leader. Because there are a lot of leaders in India right now. And I would much rather the youngsters would follow them. I would much rather you follow Adani and Ambani than Modi or Shah. I'll be very honest with you. I'm sure even Modi and Shah follow Adani and Ambani, but everyone is forced to. But the point is, here you see an example of somebody trying to create something for Gujarat or India, and him being pilloried a lot, him being made almost as a caricature of everything that is wrong in this country. Do the Americans criticize Bill Gates or anyone to the extent that Adani and Ambani have become as a symbol of repression and a symbol of oligarchy? So when the fault also lies with the politics, the fault also lies with the people. They themselves are not able to identify who the leaders are. What will the leaders do in that case? So, but to come back to your question, I'd much rather you identify and follow non-political leaders than political leaders, because more often than not you will be disappointed with the political leaders.
And you also said that because of Gujarat we can be the leaders soon, but in the state from last many years no leader is consistent, and without a proper leader how will this happen?
Yes, so as I said, out of 1800 public sector units, always has to be an analogy to make people understand. Out of 1800 public sector units, we have 9 so-called Navratnas that are profit making. We are very happy with those. ONGC is one, and there are others. Without realizing that those Navratnas can be making 10 times the amount of profit, can be more competitive, can be shorn of the fact that they have gathered through their public sector life. So likewise, I would say Gujarat is still shackled because of its political, problems, or politicians won't allow it to come up with its true color. Let's put it that way. Gujarat is a Navratna, but it is still PSC. How about that analogy? If Gujaratis are allowed to compete and become like a California, Gujarat will overtake California. I have no doubt about that. But will it be allowed to do that? That's the question that Gujaratis need to ask.
Yeah, so good morning, sir. Myself, Chitra. And I had a question. Well, you correctly highlighted how important farm laws were for our country, and a lot of people oppose it. Not only the opposition, but farmers themselves were opposed, right? And our Prime Minister repeated the laws. So, how are we supposed to make a change when the Prime Minister himself was able to? Well, you look up on us that we can change. Your last line was that we are young, we could make a change. So how are we able to when the leader himself is not in the power? I think.
Yes, you caught me there. You caught me there because you can't, because you can go against the Prime Minister and you can approach the Supreme Court. But what if the Supreme Court is also against you? What do you do? I mean, you approach the United Nations, those useless guys are anyway, they're not going to do it. I don't know what they're worried about. But you're absolutely right. The last recourse was the Supreme Court. You expect the Supreme Court to see sense, and when you said that the farmers also opposed it, I'm afraid you're wrong, because the data shows that the 86% of the farmers were for the farm law. The political parties were for the farm. The people who were on the streets, they were these. Their word has been coined by our Prime Minister, Anand, Ticket, and all those people. They weren't real farmers. The real farmers could not come onto the streets because they were farming. They were producing for this country. You see cotton farmers in Gujarat. And here again, you want, how many examples should I give you? That agriculture is intertwined with science and environment. You talk of, I haven't even come to the genetically modified organisms. Do you know which state has taken the GMO and adopted it? It is Gujarat. Despite so much opposition. Why has it done it? It has done it because it sees sense. It has seen the controls, it has seen the failed experiments. It doesn't want to repeat those failed experiments. That is what enterprise is. Enterprise is not, let me try and repeat a failed experiment. Let me try and keep on making a non-GMO, non-BT cotton and keep on spraying it with pesticides, thus ruining the environment and making those bugs, even pests, even more resistant to those pesticides and not helping me at all, cutting my income by 2/3. No, Gujaratis, farmers. And I'm not talking of farmers who had MBA degrees or are scientists or professionals or doctors or engineers. They possibly haven't even gone to school. But they knew. How did they know? That is what you as management graduates need to ask. How did a person who never went to school know that he wants BT cotton and not any other cotton? And now India has become one of the top 3 producers of cotton within a span of 10 years. And all that propaganda All that propaganda is absolutely gone to naught, to gutter. All those lies about BT farmers committing suicide, complete lies. You read peer-reviewed papers where it is exposed though, but the farmers know. The lobbies still are on their propaganda. But the farmers know the answer. And why would it come out that 86% of the farmers, Supreme Court Commission was for the farmers, and yet the Chief Justice said it. So there, young lady, you are absolutely right. There is nothing, absolutely nothing that we as Indian citizens could do, but watch it and be patient.
In that context, I have another question as well. You talked about river linkages being approved by Supreme Court as well. But what has happened in Gujarat just a month back, a river linkage project that was Par, Tapi and Narmada linkage, that project was cancelled, scrapped rather, just because there had been lots of protests. So my question is like, how to convince people, because these are all management students, some kind of communication should be there for them. So probably you might have a lesson for them.
I think what you said is personally very hurtful to accept, but it is true. It is true because we have so many examples like that. Did you know that India, that was a world exporter of copper, has now become a world importer within 4 years? You know the reason why? Because for frivolous reasons, somebody saw the protesters, they closed down the internet. Within 4 years, from exporters, they have become importers. Who is responsible for this? Honestly, if it was left to the people, in fact, it is GLS, so law comes intrinsically to all of you. But I don't think India has this class action suit. I don't think, I might be wrong, where millions of people should be allowed to sue the government, should be allowed to sue the Chief Justice. Why not? When the proof is in front of you that the farm laws are going to triple, quadruple a farmer's income. When you as business entrepreneurs have a choice to either go to the government market to sell your produce, whatever it might be, or to a private produce, and the farmer does. And the farmer is given a choice by the government and then it is repealed. I should be able to sue the government because what you're doing is you're preventing me from earning more money. It is as simple as that. I should be able to sue the person who is not. I voted you in. You are responsible. You have a role to make me more prosperous. If through a policy that is sure to make me more prosperous, and it's not just the Prime Minister on a whim built out these farm laws, they were deliberated for 16 years in Swaminathan committees. That is the reason why they came onto the manifestos of all parties. It was not an overnight decision for every party to say we need these laws. It was in the building for 16 years. So the farmers knew that this is going to make them prosperous. But the middlemen knew that it is going to destroy them. So the middlemen came onto the streets. The farmers were in the field farming. If at all, I think what we need in this country, I think that has your difficult question has possibly brought out a seed of a solution. We need class action suits by millions of Indians to sue their government, to sue the Supreme Court, and then, but I don't know then again, if you sue the Supreme Court, if you sue the Chief Justice, who will hear your case? So that's the problem.
Hello sir, I'm Milan. My question is, may I allowed to speak in English?
Please, बिल्कुल हिंदी में बोलो।
सर मेरा सवाल है कि आपने जितने भी डोमेन मेंशन किए हैं उनमें कहीं ना कहीं एक सेट ऑफ पीपल ऐसे आते हैं जिनका जिक्र हमेशा होता है और आई थिंक आज करना जरूरी है बिकॉज आप फॉर्मल लॉ ले लो या डिफेंस में आप राफेल डील ले लो, तेजस ले लो, उसमें कहीं ना कहीं वो सेट ऑफ पीपल थे जिन्होंने पर्टिकुलर पार्टी को टारगेट किया ना कि गवर्नमेंट को, और उस चीज से जो यूथ है उनको जो प्रॉब्लम हुई, लाइक जो एनआरसी एक्ट में जो 12th के और 10th के स्टूडेंट को इफेक्ट हुई, सर उस चीज को हम किस तरीके से डील करें या उसका सॉल्यूशन किस तरीके से लाएं? बिकॉज कहीं ना कहीं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में कुछ तो लूप है जो उनको वो पावर देती है वो चीज करने में। आप राहुल गांधी की बात करें। तो मैं आपको बता दूं कि सबसे ज्यादा जो बीजेपी को जिताता है वो राहुल गांधी। सबसे बड़ी गलती अगर बीजेपी करेगी, वो कभी नहीं करेगी, वो राहुल गांधी को हटाने 100 सीटें को खुद ही आता है। बट अब आप जैसे मैंने आपको फार्म बिल के एग्जाम्पल दिए, उनके मैनिफेस्टो, आपको मैनिफेस्टो आप उनका डाउनलोड करिए पीडीएफ, पॉइंट नंबर 12, 13, 15, दे आर द फार्म लॉर्ड। किसी भी मीडिया वाले में राहुल गांधी से लोग कहते हैं, राइटफुली कहते हैं कि मोदी डजंट गिव इंटरव्यू, प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस, यू नो, राइट, बट व्हेन राहुल गांधी gives, is it not the media's duty to ask him ki, why are these 3 farm laws in your manifesto and you are calling them black and you are against it? Nobody is asking. So you're right. I mean, and I'm sorry when opposition says it is the opposition's role to oppose the government. Of course, but oppose logically. I mean, there is, I don't know, there's as much sense in Rahul Gandhi as I say, is in consuming rasam with chopsticks. We can keep on doing it, but very short circuit hai. So BJP requires Rahul Gandhi, but certainly India doesn't.
So can we say that the level of opposition has actually gone down?
See, I think the level of opposition has remained same. The acrimony has gone up. So the opposition has decided that come what may, we are going to oppose everything that Modi does. And I'll just give you 2 or 3 examples. When you had the Swachh Bharat campaign, and one of the most successful campaigns, I think 11 crore toilets have been made, which has not only led to the well-being of the people. There have been peer-reviewed scientific analysis done that has said that every such toilet has almost given 54,000 rupees to every family that has in terms of improvement. It has saved them 50,000 rupees. And yet the opposition said was against making this toilet because it said, I mean, this is delving into such a bizarre thing, that it is not allowing women their quality talking time when they go to the fields in the morning. This is true. When you oppose making a toilet like this, what can you do? I mean, you know, that is Fit Bharat. इस पे कौन अपोज कर सकता है? पर फिट भारत को भी अपोज कर दिया, क्या ओबेसिटी चाहिए आपको इस देश में? I don't understand. जैसे I say कि अब thank God Modi doesn't say कि प्राणायाम करो तो सांस लेना बंद कर देंगे. So it is not that the opposition quality has gone down, the quality was down. It is the acrimony has gone up. So everything they believe that they are going to oppose everything that Modi, which is a real tragedy. And what happens is that so much quality time of the government is spent in answering the opposition that the government doesn't answer logical Indians who want to ask this question. So Modi ji never answered Indians who were for the farm law. There was never, he could have given a press conference where you don't want journalists, but we take plethora or kind of Indians from every domain, scientists, engineers, managers, people, farmers. Talk to them and say, you can't after 1 year say that हमारी communication में कमी है. ऐसे थोड़ी है, you can't say that. So opposition is not playing its role. That is true. But the tragedy is the government playing its role. That is what we should be concerned with. That's it.
Good afternoon, sir.
Sir, a question from my side. You did mention in your session that the younger generation probably, so we have so much of youth energy today that in the next 20 years or 10 years, probably they will be on this side. I think I know the answer to my question is going to be a very long list, but can you, sir, highlight 2 or 3 major challenges for the next coming decade that the youth energy should focus on? Just 2 or 3. So the biggest challenge is government control. And I think in anything that the youth does, there should be zero government control. And one of the real success stories of India has been information technology. Why on earth do you need an IT ministry? I don't understand. But koi cheez success, if it ain't broke, don't break it. IT functioned magnificently without the IT ministry. Ab ek IT minister aate, shipping minister, coach. This another promise that I forgot to mention was maximum governance, minimum government. ये उल्टा हो गया है पिछले 8 साल. We have increased the number of ministries. We have increased, and that is also because you want to placate your alliance, your association member as coalition dharma or something. It's not to that great extent in the NDA because it has a majority. Does it have a majority? I don't know. Some of the steps it is taking, I'm not very sure if BJP has a majority. But the point is, if you want the youth to prosper, they should not be able to get up in the morning, draw their curtains and see the government. Right now they do this and they see the government at least 6 or 7 times in different areas all through every single day. Every decision that they make, कहीं ना कहीं से government ऐसे निकल कहीं से ऊपर से नीचे से आ रही. You don't want the government. And that is the true unshackled. So I think the biggest challenge is not for the youths to think. The biggest challenge is for the government that taxes the thinking process of the youth. That has to change. And that cannot come from the youth, that has to come from the government. And here, can I also make, I forgot very briefly to tell you why I am for a welfare state. And the reason for that is that right now we are not in a situation to not be a welfare state. And I'm not just talking of the Nordic model where they have a high tax regime and they have a welfare state. But the fact is we have a 515, 520 million strong labor force. In any competitive system, Darwinian or not, scientific or not, don't you want your workforce to be highly educated? Don't you want your workforce to be healthy, to be competitive? Otherwise, why? You have corporate social responsibilities. You have now a lot of companies paying from the CSR, lot of funds to make their employees very happy. Why do they do that? Because you want a very successful, happy, competitive, healthy, educated workforce. And that can right now in India can only come through a welfare state. And I think the Prime Minister realized this, and the reason why he has been re-elected in 2019 is because of those 3 or 4 schemes. I think we have to realize before we start influencing the world, possibly even now I think Modi has realized we're not in a situation to do this. Let me get the people to that level where they are healthy, they are not scrounging for their next meal, they have their toilets, they have a tap water supply, the basic amenities. Let me give those first. Then let me go to the next level. I think he wanted to go to that next level, if you remember, during 2019 to 24, of course, COVID intervened. You remember in 2018, he said, next 5 years, I want to target the aspirational class. I think that's been delayed by 5 to 10 years. And I think he is simply working on delivering on those basic amenities where you have cooking gas, tap water, housing, health, residence, correct? So these things make for a ready, improved labor force. And that is why you need a welfare state, because a welfare state will cater to that. Will subsidize it. Once you have this system, by all means start removing the welfare state, and you even don't have to remove it, because you only have to know 10 to 20 years down the line when people have the money, when the competitive labor force, a healthy labor force is able to compete and lands up a good job, starts to earn a lot of money. Next time a family member of that competitive labor force gets ill, you have a choice of going to a government hospital or private hospital. 99 out of 100 you will choose a private hospital. So what will happen is, as countries get more and more prosperous, if they are intelligent, they start junking socialism and the welfare state more and more, because in a competitive field, you cannot compete with capitalist force, and you must not.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Ayush, and as you mentioned in your speech that
As you mentioned, Mike, you're not loud enough as a TV panelist, otherwise I
sir, you mentioned in your speech that one single line of idea can bring a huge change. So let's say that in here, youngsters, only one person has one good idea, but as you might have seen in previous movie, that before even exam, many foreign companies come to recruit youngsters for their own country. So don't you think government should do something to stop them or to influence youngsters' mind to work for their own country rather than other countries?
Right. So what we're talking about is brain drain.
Yes.
Now, the thing about this country is that we have so much brain, we don't need to worry about the brain. And that 5% चला भी जा रहा है. And please remember, so we must not be scared of competition. You know, Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi and Congress, socialists, they were scared of competition. That is why they were inward. That is why they were protectionist regime. Almost 97% income tax, and we protect everything, and that is how we ended up with ambassador. Right now, you look at our cars, what Tata is producing, using engineers who are from all around the world. If there is a brain drain, then there is, I don't know what the reverse of brain drain is, I think it's called reverse drain. Reverse drain. Plus, in a competitive world, why should we be worried that Satya Nadella has gone there and is helping Microsoft? Not at all. Everything is for the global good. Indians are working in NASA, Indians are working in Sundar Pichai in Google. I think it's a matter of, it's not pride, it's a matter of joy that Indians have reached out and they've spread their tentacles all around the world. So I'm happy with the brain drain. How do we, instead of stopping it, we increase the amount of brain so that little bit of brain drain doesn't matter? That is what we need to worry about. We don't need to worry about the 5 people who go to America. We need to worry about why only 5 people are there who are capable. That if those go, we are left with nothing. That is what we need to. We need to make hundreds of people. So that if 5 go, we still have 95. That is what our government is worried about.
I have a question. Just yesterday I was reading one article that said that probably Ukraine war might bring about a change in the scenario of globalization. So earlier it was COVID pandemic which prompted all governments to close their borders, and then now Ukraine war, where once again all countries have started becoming protectionist. So what is your take on this matter?
Here, if you permit me to narrate an anecdote, all of you must have seen Lagan. So in Lagan, I think Elizabeth, the main star, is trying to explain what cricket is, and then she asks, "Do you know what cricket is?" And Bhuvan says, in the next 1 minute, he narrates what cricket is, yahan se yahan, yahan se wahan, and then I think Ram Singh is the thing, and Elizabeth looks at Ram Singh and says, "Ye main translate nahi kar sakta." So likewise, I know in the public domain, people ask me views on everything, but on Ukraine war, I really have no opinion. Okay. So I think what has happened, first of all, I am against the war, the Russian war, because I think it's an independent country and if an independent country wants to join a NATO alliance, it is within its right. Why should some third country have any point of view? It's like saying that India cannot join this alliance or nobody can be allowed to join that alliance. And right now there are other countries, Sweden and Finland, who are joining NATO. That's right. So I think it was wrong. What it has done is, I think it was basically done on the ego and things and fancies of Putin. But he also has calculated, it was not a foolish thing, it was not an accident that he done it. If you look at the first week of the Ukraine war, the ruble really dipped and everyone thought that it's going to be destroyed, and right now it has now increased to levels that are greater than it was when it went to war. So he thought things through, maybe for the next year or so, probably in 7 months since we had this war. And now with the winter approaching, a lot of European countries, including Germany, they have decided to relax all sanctions. Look at the hypocrisy. They were blaming India for buying Russian oil. Now they are buying Russian gas. They're lining up. So, as again to take Lagan to say as Kulbhushan, ye gore log baap ki bhi sage nahi. But we need to stand independent and powerful. So, if we are getting oil from Russia, if we are getting oil from any third country or something like that, that is what real politics is. But I've said this, in order to bring stability, in order to bring democracy to the whole world, because ultimately there is another thing that Modi says, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and many people deride him for saying it. I think it's one of the most beautiful, I would say, ideas to come out from this country for thousands of years. This is scientifically the most robust idea, that the world is a family. We are not exclusivists, and we prove it. Indians prove it in everything that they do. We are one of the most friendly nations. We trade with 200 countries. We have one of the most friendly refugee policies. So in all the things that we do, we are for the climate deal, even though it will hurt us. We truly believe in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. But the other thing you need to realize is that how do you stop people, or how do you stop nations like China from being nations like China? How do you stop it? Well, the very easy thing to do is to stop trade with it. If you completely stop trading with a dictatorship, slowly the people will realize that yes, dictatorship is not the way to go. And they would come up and they would. So the way to go from dictatorship to democracy is to actually take the step, stop trading with dictators. If China, nobody were to trade with China, China would possibly, the leadership or the people would rise up and make sure that China becomes a democracy. But you know what has happened in the last 2 years? Our trade with China imbalance has been the highest ever. Our imports have reached $125 billion. So when we were talking in 2020 about Atmanirbharta and we had all that fracas with China, we have increased our trade with China in the last 2 years. We should have gone the other way around. Our finance minister, our finance ministry should have made teams that went to all those companies who were investing in China. We will give you a better deal. Come and invest with us. And there have been authoritative surveys done that 87% of everything that we import from China can be imported cheaper from a third country. 87%. We haven't done it. We've gone the other way around. So when we talk of our position in the global world, we are actually inadvertently helping prop up China. We may say things that that we don't agree with China, that we are toe to toe with China, elephant versus dragon. But at the end of the day, we are paying so much to China that we are making China the economic superpower. Should we be doing that? Is that Atmanirbharta? That is what we have.
rise of the courts. What is your view on that and why government instead of doing that, we can supply like the countries like Sri Lanka and Afghanistan who are already in a crisis and other countries. What's your view?
I'm very sorry, I don't know much about this topic, so I won't be able to.
And I have another question. And in last week, yes, we did and the opposition are now opposing about that by the courts and recently the case was suspended. So, what do you say?
Okay, okay, it's got no relation to the topic, but very quickly to answer that, there is a GST council that is made up of all the states, BJP and non-BJP, that decide on what tax to tax and what not to tax. Secondly, a lot of the things that have been taxed or increased in tax, they were already increased during the UPA review. So this is actually, as the economist is saying, is a revenue neutral taxation decision. So I'm not against that.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Dr. Kuldeep Mahajan, and I have two quick questions. One is, how should we deal with China, politically, militarily, and economically in the same? Second is, what are the forces which are forcing India not to do privatization of defense and some other industries like space also, as America has considered making DARPA, Lockheed Martin, and Boeing and other things. Good question.
No, absolutely. So as far as China is concerned, I already said, I think if we, and I've said this before, there is something called the concert of democracy. That is, people have tabulated, so there are 60 democracies that are truly democracies, and India is one of them. Don't go by what Rahul Gandhi says India is a functioning autocracy or something like that. India is a democracy. And he can only say those things because he is in a democracy. So these 60 odd nations, and I've said this before 6 years ago, they should be trading with themselves. Some of them are oil rich, some of them are source rich, some are whatever. And we must stop, and this is a long run, you can't immediately stop importing oil from dictatorships and all that, like Saudi Arabia and all that. We need, and everyone does it. I'm talking of the long run. And that is the only way that, and this would not only help India and India, it would help the Chinese as well. Everyone wants democracy. Nobody, you see what is happening in China right now with this really silly and bizarre zero COVID policy. It is devastating the population. In fact, if it was a democracy, people would have revolted already. And right now, I mean, hardly anyone is wearing masks. Everyone has probably been exposed to COVID, the PE5 variant and all. In China, I mean, everyone would be wearing a mask. If someone was caught everyone would be tested to come in, and this, kind of harmless, quote unquote harmless Omicron variant. That is all because one person decides what is to be done, and the country follows it. 1.3 billion people. So to help those people usher in democracy, we must stop trading with it. But our people have to realize it. I don't know. I mean, of course, I'm a commentator, so I'm not privy to. Maybe the government in its wisdom decides that, look, we really cannot source this from a third nation. But what about the study that says 87% has been, I mean, that's the government study. So, there I think we've been caught being lazy, to be honest. Because we can give a lot of incentives to people who are willing to invest in China, to come to India. We always give incentives, tax incentives, or land, or whatever. We should have done it in a real, very fast and a very dedicated way. We should have made things like that. And as to your, the second question was,
which are the councils which are forcing us not to do privatization?
Right. Yes. So, as I said, I mean, I gave that the ratio index of Dr. Kalam from 30% in 1992, we have now increased to 64% indigenous. In fact, Army, this is 64% is average of the three armed forces. Air Force is 50-something%, Army is even 74%. So this is a good trend, good direction. We have almost doubled our indigenous sourcing. As to whether we should have 100% sourcing, there again, I mean, there are experts who would disagree that if there are better systems to have, then our defense should not be at the cost or at the mercy of something which is only second rate or not at that level. So if we don't have Tejas which is at the level of Rafale, we should not just buy hundreds of Tejases and not Rafale. So I think we are getting there. We should. It's only a matter of time.
Yes, please. Yes.
You would be an excellent news anchor.
My question is that we come to a life. We also have welfare state. We get from my welfare state, most likely because of violence, especially the objective that we have for violence and economies. Setting up a welfare state at this point in time, those who have at least 5 what do you think of that?
That's a great question. When I say I'm for a welfare state, your counter argument is a devil's advocate that is also going to push back the country. You're absolutely right. But as I say, a welfare state or a socialist state is only possible in a capitalist system. So when you have a welfare state, you define what are you going to subsidize. If you're going to subsidize education, you obviously have to subsidize defense, procurement. You need money for that. Let's put it that way. You need money for the basic amenities. That has to come from the taxes that you get from having a completely free market capitalistic economy. So you unleash this side to get money from it, to pay for. You're not robbing them. Well, taxation is kind of robbing, but it's not that drastic. So you don't have any state, for example, you don't have any PSU. But at the same time, you have private sector giving you money. That is how America earns money. You have one Apple, you have one Google, you have all these companies who are giving billions of money to America for them to do, for subsidize, their farmers or whatever they are doing, what the government does. So I'm not saying that socialist state is good. Absolutely not. I'm saying that you need for the time being a welfare state, but it has to be in a capitalistic system. The government has no business to be in business. Government should not be. But the government can and should tax businesses that are private, and with that tax money it can, for example, let me give you the example of vaccines. 2 billion, almost 3 doses. Did we want that? Of course we did. Now, is there anyone in this hall, including me, who said no? Someone who doesn't even earn 600 rupees in a month should be paying 600 rupees for a shot of vaccine? That is cruel. So I want the government to pay. I want the government to administer the vaccine free of cost. I want it to the poor people. And I wanted that cess. I am willing to pay for it. But that doesn't mean that the government should put me in a public sector unit. The government should allow me to earn money. From that money, through my private means or what enterprise, from that money, the government should keep on taxing Adani and Ambani. But let them be Adani and Ambani. Let them not be, bank clerks in a public sector unit bank. Yes, as I said, you need a healthier workforce. If you have what India had for 30-40 years, really malnourished people, IMR so high, MMR so high, children ridden with polio, debilitating disabilities, diseases, you are not going to have a healthy workforce. And remember, it's only, people join the workforce so quickly, from 10-year-old child to 14, which is illegal child labor, from 14 to 18 to just 4 years. People are entering the labor force early, and you want them to be healthy, you want them to be educated. So yes, But what is the way forward for it? I think the government has cracked it with this Ayushman Bharat thing. It is excellent. You have the insurance also, and you are propping up, and you have the health scheme as well. So yes, of course.
So, sir, I have two things. First of all, good afternoon. Welcome to Ahmedabad. Firstly, you asked your first question in which domain we were expert in 50s and 60s. So, I had a suspicion, probably a little harsh to all of us and probably lighter. We were expert in slavery.
Slavery.
Yeah, probably we lost it in 1990s. Probably some portion of it remained. The masters are outside India, but that was the only thing which we inherited for those 200 or 500, 600 years of Gulami we had. The question which I have is, why not a lot of technocrats join the government forums where the country is being represented in global forums? So like I follow Ashish Chandorkar who has joined the WTO, and I love the way Mr. Jaishankar handles the government at the global forum. But not a lot of people coming up to that kind of a stage representing the country with a proper and sophisticated view and putting the best foot forward for the country.
Yeah, so I think that's a very good question. I think the government has introduced what it calls a lateral entry. So there are a lot of people who are entering the government. But as I say, more than thinking laterally, you must think collaterally. We don't, and I'm constantly, always, to the point of obsession, trying to be reductionist and trying to remove the government's role from our common day life. So I know Ashish is a very good friend, and so are so many others who joined. But I don't want Ashish to be in the government. I'm sorry. Ashish is listening there. Please pardon me. You're a star, but government has no business, not only to be in business, but to be controlling it, to be going to conferences, to be just remove the government. Ashish is a star irrespective of being in the government. His voice needs to be heard not from a government podium, but across the board. So likewise, foreign relations, do we need a foreign minister? As I said, I mean, of course, at this point of time, it would be foolhardy to not have majority of the ministers that the government has. But surely there are some that, shipping minister, and there is a fisheries minister, there is a minister of statistics, there is a minister of program implementation. You don't need ministers. Come on, they're just there to placate or to increase the bulk of the thing. You need to be, not more than 10 ministers should be there in every government. Huge, yes. I'm here, my slide is taking, so as many questions unless you fine, thank you. You mean the reservation system is removed with the car? So the reservation system is removed. Right. Look, so right now, I'm personally not for the reservation system to be removed. There is a talk that people have said that when Dr. Ambedkar was there, he said that the reservation system should be there for a limited period of time. There is discrepancy of the reservation of 10 years or 30 years. But politicians being politicians, now we know that no politician will have the guts to remove the reservation system. In fact, they are pitching somehow to increase the reservation. So if Supreme Court, that restriction wasn't there, I think 50%, I think they would have increased it by now. It has a cost. There is a justification for reservation system because obviously, to an extent, you had a huge chunk of population that was deprived, that was cruelly dealt with, and as a result, the present generation is paying for the sins of our forefathers. I don't I don't mind that, but I want us people to be grateful for that. I am grateful and I thank the younger generation that you are doing it. That you are not casteist, you have not committed any sin or bigotry, but you are quote unquote, not just quote unquote, actually suffering because our forefathers may have or possibly committed some sin. So my heartfelt, formal thank you to the younger generation. I really want to do it. Is because not only are you suffering because of this, you are being made to feel guilty about it. Every politician thrusts this upon you, makes you feel guilty that you are privileged, you are privileged, you are privileged, you must do this. It is your duty. Every leftist will vote and everything. Yes, you must do it, but I thank you for doing it because you did not commit a sin. Where is it written that a person who is not guilty should be put behind bars or should suffer? In a sense, that is what you're doing. You must do it because a huge chunk of our population, they still are underprivileged or unprivileged. Although many of them, you have always this constant demarcation of a creamy layer, uncreamy layer, or whatever it may be. Fact of the matter is, a lot of people who are much more prosperous than you, the general category, are still making avail of the reservation system. They are much more richer, they are more prosperous, they are more privileged, and still Lalu Prasad Yadav comes to mind. But the fact of the matter is that I do sincerely want to thank you, and this is my opportunity to say thank you for doing it because you did not oppress anyone, but you are paying for the sins of your forefathers. Which other country does it? I don't know. A lot of countries do it. But I want to thank you.
I have been told that this is the last question that we are going to ask. So my question goes to the first pillar that we discussed today. Sir, do you think
I discussed the fourth pillar. This is the fifth.
The last one that was related to education, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So my question is, do you think we are the fruits of the distorted history seeds that have been instilled in us? And do you think that history has been written or created by the believers of grey, as you said in one of your interviews, if I'm not wrong?
Yes, absolutely. And I said this before and I say it again, that nations weaken not because of their past, but by how they are taught. That is how nations weaken. Nations always recover. Always. Destroyed nations, scorched earth nations, they always recover. It takes maybe 20, 30, 40 years. You look at what Japan was at the end of World War. Totally destroyed. Germany. They recovered in 30, 40 years. You look at what Korea was in the 50s, in the 60s. You look at South Korea now. You look at what China was in the 80s. You look at what China. So nations always recover. Because the people have it in them to recover. But this is not a question of nations recovering. This is a question of nations being perpetually weaker, getting more and more weaker. And if we don't know our own history, if we know what were our heroes, what were our policies, what were our reactions to other states, what were our inventions, what were our leaders like kings maybe or others, if you don't know that, then you are always clamoring for something which is not with us but away from us. Be it ideology, leftist ideology, or any other incrementally. We want to latch on to it without realizing that we always had it. So, but what can I say? Here the problem is not amongst us. We have education ministers who say on record they are proud to not even change one full stop. So, it is not a question. It is not a question of 5 years. It is a question of 50 years. The politicians are there only for 5 years and they worry only for that limited time. But if you keep on prescribing the same books that eulogize Mao, that eulogize Che Guevara, that eulogize Tipu, You will keep on having people who will go to Mazars of Aurangzeb who killed 4.9 million Hindus, who beheaded Sambhaji, beheaded Gurudek Bahadur. You will keep on having people who go to his Mazar and worship. They don't know. They don't know better, and we've not told them better. So yes, this problem is what weakens us. And if you believe I'm just talking about philosophical weakening or metaphorical, no, this weakens us truly to the extent that you will form governments that espouse to such wrongful history, and those governments will then take decisions that would physically weaken our nation. As we know what happened when communists tried to arm twist the UPA in not accepting the US nuclear deal. If the communists were in power, they would not have done so many things that were in national interest. So it hurts us by not knowing our true history. That is one thing that you are absolutely right, and thank you for bringing that up. That was indeed the fifth column that I should have talked of, but I did not.
So, before we wind up, I have this last question. Where do you see India at 100?
India?
Sorry, where do you see India at
2049, 2047, 2047. So let me go one by one with all the domains, because that has I have framed our influence with those 4 or 5 domains in mind. Let me answer where I see them, where I see ourselves in 2047 in those domains. I see India as a real world leader in the domain of science and technology. No doubt about it. In 2047, we would be sending most of the satellites into space. We would have landed in Mars. We would have taken Rahul Gandhi and put him in Mars. That we would have done. But brought him back because it was important for people to get transit. But in science, we would be very successful in biology, in biologics, slowly in the field of innovation. Did you know that we are the largest patenting nation in the world? But we are one of the smallest nations whose patents people buy. Now you see the dichotomy. So we take pride in fact, the minister took pride in the fact that we patent the most things. But what's the point of patenting if nobody buys your invention? The real thing, as I said, is not GDP, but GDP per capita. You should be concerned with how many people are buying your patent, rather than how many inventions, quote unquote inventions you patent. But slowly that ratio is going to improve. So that's science taken care of. Agriculture, we would be here down in the dumps. Nothing is going to change. It is going to get even worse, because we are not going to shift 44% of our workforce to other sectors of the economy. That we must do, because Western nations have only 2% of their labor force, as I said, 2 or 3% in agriculture. We must get people away from agriculture. And when I say this, I don't demean our farmers. In fact, I hold them in higher esteem. We want that part of economy to be much more flexible. It is right now it is the most inflexible. At the end of the day, you need food on your table. Does it matter if that food is being produced on an Indian farm or a foreign farm? No, it doesn't. What matters is the quality of the food. But the point is, if we are producing it at an Indian farm to satisfy our ego, replace our farmer vote bank and paying 10 times the cost that we would if that farm was procured from outside, doing 10 times more damage to our environment. Water guzzling, taking 10 times the amount of water. Whom are we harming? So in agriculture, we are down in the dumps. The third was, I think, defense that I talked about. We would be almost entirely indigenous. We would be exporting a lot of our weapons to a lot of third world countries, which may include Pakistan. Some of our weapons to Pakistan, I looked at the issues or not. You can't be the other was the government, the PSU thing. I feel there would be a improvement. I truly feel it because I think, and that is largely to do with people are seeing the success of Adani and Ambani. So that's less to do with the government, but more to do with the question that somebody asked, who should be our leaders? And people will slowly realize that our leaders are not political leaders, but they are business leaders. So that switch will come. It already has come with Air India, privatization of Air India. It should slowly come with privatizing everything. Government should not own anything. So that was the third thing. The fourth was environment damage. It would take us at least, I think, double that amount to mitigate the damage that we have already done. I mean, our water level is so down, pesticides and everything are so seeped in. We are a growing economy. We would continue to have, I think, coal power in spite of the very laudatory steps that Modi government has taken to have renewable energy sources, and I think 600 gigawatts is the capacity, which is way over what we are using now, but it's a fantastic theme to do that. We would take more than 2047. But on the whole, I see a very healthier India, very healthy India, educated India, prosperous India, and a lot of it to do with privatized India and a prosperous Gujarat.
Distinguished dignitary of the day, Professor Anand, invited guests, my colleagues and students. Indeed, a matter of pleasure for me to propose vote of thanks to GLS University. With the intention to inculcate global perspective towards business among students, GLS PBA has been organizing a talk show revolving around international affairs for the past 5 years. I would like to put on record our sincerest thanks to Professor Anand, who readily accepted our invitation to enlighten our students on the emerging influence of India in the global arena. There are things to be proud of when India is in Amrit Kaal. However, your discourse has drawn attention to areas which need improvement. You have shown us the way how India can become a combination of soft power and hard power. What I have understood is that at 75, India needs introspection. We are all inspired by your riveting speech and electrifying interaction. I take this opportunity to express my gratitude towards GLS University for giving us a free hand to organize such events. I am indebted to all our guests who took time of their busy schedule to grace the event. A special thanks to our Dean, Dr. Shafati Dani, who is not only our mainstay but also stirs us to do our best. I would like to appreciate my colleagues for their enormous cooperation in the organization of this event. I would be failing in my duty if I did not thank our students who have made this event a big success. I would like to thank all of you directly or indirectly involved to make this day memorable for all of us. Last but not least, a big thank you to each one of you for being with us.